And so for wise people, you give them more time, energy, help, money, love, because they're a good return on investment. Foolish people need consequences. Unless things change, there's going to be some boundaries and some consequences. Evil people, you need to protect yourself from. If you give them more time, more energy, more access, more money, they will cause more plotting and more scheming and more pain and more harm. And again, wise people live by the Spirit. Foolish people live by the flesh, so they need consequences to bring them to a point where they want to become wise and make some changes. Evil people live by the demonic. They're just trying to hurt people and cause harm. And so you got to look at the people in your life, or around the holiday season, the people in your family, and say, okay, who's wise, who's foolish, who's evil? And what I would say is, if someone really is evil, you've got to decide whether or not you want any activity with them. If there's somebody in your family, for example, that has a history of assaulting others physically, sexually, do you really want to spend the holidays with them? If you've got a grandpa who was, hurting the children when they were little in inappropriate ways, now that you're an adult, do you really want your children to spend time with that person? If they're evil, if they're dangerous, if they're unsafe, you need to understand that just because they're a relative doesn't mean that they get to harm you. In fact, you may need to have some real strong boundaries, or even a conversation that says, you know what, unless things change, this relationship is going to have distance, or it's even going to be done. And so when it's wise people, those are the people that we tend to look forward to seeing and spending time with and talking to and learning from and catching up with. So usually it's really the enjoyable part of the holidays. Every family has got some foolish people, and let's be honest and say that we all have areas of our life that we're foolish. Even people who are wise are not wise in every area of their life. And so in areas and or in seasons, we can all be foolish. We want to have a little sympathy and empathy with those who are foolish, but we also want to encourage them by saying, I love you. I want to talk to you about this. But unless these things change, there's going to be some consequences. And it might be, hey, every Christmas Eve, you get drunk and flirt with my wife. And I'll tell you what, Uncle Weirdo, that's not acceptable behavior. And we love you and we want to see you for Christmas. But if you get drunk and start moving toward my wife, we might ask you to leave, or we might get in the car, or it might get a little heated in the living room, and we may need to get into this. So why don't you just behave in such a way that you don't trigger this kind of necessity to have this kind of complexity? There are complications. When you say that, when you speak that way, when you cut into me in front of family, when you sort of cuss out my kids, or you have backhanded comments about my spouse, and you're doing it in front of the family, it just makes the holidays really awkward. When you complain the whole time, when you do your archaeological dig, and you pull up every hurt in the history of your life and family, and back up the truck and dump it on the dining room table at the holidays every year, it makes the rest of us feel really awkward and uncomfortable. If those kinds of things are happening, you pull that person aside lovingly, privately, quietly, have a conversation with them. Maybe it's on the phone, and say, we love you, we want to see you, we want this to be enjoyable, but I need to bring these things to your attention because it really makes the holidays less than pleasant for me.